which is nutrient dense, which is extremely good for enhancing nutrient security and the food security. Once the hunger is eradicated, you are satisfied. Then the second aspect of native food is it is very strong, which is maintains the health and well-being of people as per SDG number 3 of the UN. Here we recommend traditional diets as you have experienced in today's lunch menu, very good for metabolic health and has very powerful dietary diversity. As I was explaining to some of our friends from the press, that today India has become more or less focused on 6 items, especially in the restaurants and hotels across India. There seems to be a trend of only 6 main items: idli and dosa from the south, paratha and puri from the north, and pasta and pizza from the west. So we want to make sure that there is more diversity, and that's the second principle. When the native food is satisfying and strong, the third principle is we want the native food to be sustainable, which is responsible production and consumption as per SDG number 12, local, seasonal, which is low in waste and low in processing. So when you have things which are satisfying, strong, and sustainable, the fourth aspect of native food is it is safe, which is planet friendly. And the SDG 13 is focused on climate action. And as Sanat Kumar Prabhu was sharing with our friends from the press, the millet crops which they grow are extremely climate resilient. When you have 3000 millimeter plus heavy rainfall in Palghar district, when the regular rice crops come under the influence of heavy rains and collapse and result in massive crop loss. These crops which the Govardhan Rural Development Team grows is highly resilient even in the midst of very dense rainfall. So therefore we want the crops which are climate resilient, and today in the lunch you had horse gram and some of the indigenous tuber which is extremely resilient. Then the fifth element is gender equality, which is shared that women across traditions in India, in different districts, have always maintained some very specific recipes which has been passed down through generations. And therefore, those need to be preserved and protected, and that's what we're trying. And today, we will also be launching, thanks to the support from Symbiosis School of Culinary Arts, an excellent recipe book, which is like a basic first cut recipe book, which we are launching on Palghar recipes and the flavors of Palghar. So therefore, let me conclude by again summarizing the 5 elements of the native food which we want to focus on is foods which are satisfying, remove hunger, food which is strong, good for health, foods which are sustainable, which are actually very low in terms of energy, either in production or in consumption. Waste levels are less. Food which is safe, which is planet friendly, and food which is socially equitable, which provides gender equality. So, with this in mind, the Govardhan Eco Village reached out to Symbiosis School of Culinary Arts, represented by Professor Atul Gokul sir, and to IIM Ahmedabad, where we have Dr. Ranjan Ghosh representing IIM Ahmedabad and the Agribusiness School. We have Dr. Navajit Kapoor, who is a retired IAS officer who was in the Tribal Affairs, Ministry of Tribal Affairs Additional Secretary, and he is now leading our entire strategy for development in Palghar, the next phase. And this entire process began many years ago when we started our Govardhan Annakshetra program. And we have the CEO, Ms. Harneet Hariharanji and Radhika Lila Devi, who has financially supported this program for many, many years. A round of applause for her and her family. And then when we thought about this, that why not reach this concept wider across India in every district? So then we thought, let us begin with Palghar Thali. Meri Mati Meri Thali, native food matters. And this was very much supported by Jay and Radhi Shetty, and we are grateful to them for their support for all of this initiative that has been possible. Our ultimate goal is ISKCON is distributing almost 4 million meals of plate across 99 kitchens every single day in Bharat today. And so far, we have distributed more than 6 billion meals globally over the last 50 years. But from the stage of cooking, can we come to the stage of agriculture? So therefore, one of the first initiatives at a level beyond the eco-village was taken by Sanat Kumar Prabhu and Rural Development Team. We are just beginning, as Maharaj says, and our intention is to really grow this bigger because we are all aware that moving forward over the next 10 years, the wars will be over food and water. And therefore, we need to really be sensitive to this fact. And therefore, now the next stage beyond distribution, cooking and distribution, and uh, agriculture is policy. And that's where we have Prithvi and Ranjanji who are helping us how all of these discussions which we are having can go at the policy level. जितना भी हम लोग चर्चा कर रहे हैं भोजन बनाने में, भोजन को उगाने में, वो पॉलिसी के क्षेत्र में कैसे ट्रांसलेट हो, ये नेटिव फूड मैटर्स का अंतिम लक्ष्य है। इससे क्योंकि जब डिमांड बदलेगा लोगों का तब सप्लाई बदलेगा, जब सप्लाई बदलेगा तब जाके पॉलिसी उस दिशा में जाएगी। तो इसलिए जब तक लोगों की डिमांड बदलेगी नहीं, जब तक बच्चे अपने माता पिता से मांग नहीं करेंगे कि मुझे यहाँ का लोकल खाना है, तब तक कैसे प्रोडक्शन के लेवल पे आएगा, कैसे होटलों में आएगा, कैसे बिकेगा, और तब फिर पॉलिसी मेकर्स जैसे इसको मान्यता देंगे। तो आज हमारे जितने भी प्रेस बंधु आए हैं, हम आपसे यही निवेदन करते हैं कि इस संदेश पर बल दें कि वास्तव में हम पॉलिसी को भी इन्फ्लुएंस करना चाहते हैं कि अधिक से अधिक इसमें देश में परिवर्तन हो। प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी ने मिलेट मिशन के माध्यम से और लाइफ स्टाइल फॉर एनवायरमेंट के अंतर्गत जो 7 आयाम दिए हैं उसमें सबसे पहला है कंजर्व फूड, फिर कंजर्व वाटर, फिर कंजर्व एनर्जी। तो भोजन से ही सब कुछ आरंभ होता है। सो एट दिस स्टेज आई लाइक टू रिक्वेस्ट मिसेस राधी शेट्टी to share her words. She herself is a qualified nutritionist from London and the author of a best-selling book on food and recipes, which has sold thousands of copies and won a lot of acclaim for the quality and the depth at which she has presented this. So thank you very much for joining us all the way from Los Angeles, and over to you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm so honored and grateful to be here with you all. And my husband Jane was supposed to be here and he sends his apologies. He truly believes in this project and the work that Native Food Matters are doing. As a nutritionist and someone who is deeply passionate about helping people connect to the food that they eat and understand how it affects their body, I find that people don't often connect what they eat with their mental wellness. We often talk about mental health as something that lives only in the mind. But mental health actually begins much earlier, in the body and very often on our plate. What we eat directly affects our brain chemistry. And actually, most of our serotonin, actually 90%, is created in our gut, which is our happy hormone. And so much of what we feel actually is impacted by everything that is on our plate and what we eat. Whether it's the vitamins, the minerals, they are the building blocks of mood, focus, and emotional resilience. And so when someone is undernourished or living on highly processed food, it doesn't just affect their physical health. It affects how they think, how they cope, and how they show up in the world. And so consciously nourishing people is an integral part of creating a better world around us. And this becomes even more important when we talk about food insecurity. When communities lose access to their traditional foods and are replaced with cheap, ultra-processed alternatives, we don't just see a rise in physical illness, we see rising emotional distress too. And so by choosing food that nourishes our microbiome, our gut, and staying connected to traditional native foods, we can feed not only the body, but also the brain too. This book, Flavors of Balkar, has beautifully highlighted that and brings indigenous ingredients and ancestral food practices back to the center of our plates and our lives. This book is a gentle reminder that when we eat close to nature, we also move closer to balance within ourselves and with the planet. We don't live in nature, we are part of nature. And the more that we understand the food and environment around us, the deeper that we are able to connect to ourselves. I truly admire how this work honors native. I truly admire how this work honors native food wisdom while making it accessible, joyful, and relevant to modern kitchens. The recipes are stories woven through these pages. They reflect a deep respect for biodiversity, seasonal eating, and the healing power of plants. These principles are foundational for long-term health and conscious living. I'm so inspired by the thoughtful efforts of Annapurna think tank Native Food Matters and initiatives such as MAATI MERI THALI for creating awareness around nutrition, culture, and sustainability in such an inclusive and grounded way. By linking indigenous foods with nutrition science, circular economy, and livelihood generation, this initiative shows how food can be a catalyst for both personal well-being and community resilience. This beautiful book invites you to slow down, to cook with intention, and to reconnect with the wisdom that has always existed in our soils, the seeds and the stories. When we choose foods that are kind to our bodies, communities, and the earth, we create ripples of positive change. And I believe that this book will find its way into many homes, and the pages will inspire people to cook consciously, live joyfully, and share generously.
Thank you very much, Ravi, for those wonderful words, and also honored to share that in our upcoming Ishwad Center for Sattvic Culinary Art, Govardhan School of Culinary Arts, we have Radhiji also as one of our board of advisors, and in March we will be opening this. तो सात्विक भोजन से संबंधित एक culinary school हम खोल रहे हैं सिम्बायोसिस स्कूल ऑफ culinary आर्ट्स के निर्देश में, और वो मार्च में जब खुलेगा तो उस समय फिर एक इवेंट आएगा, तो उसके एडवाइजरी में भी आप उसमें उपस्थित हैं। तो एक तालियों की गड़गड़ाहट के साथ तो अब मेरे साथ अवजीत सर हैं और एडिशनल सेक्रेटरी रिटायर्ड फ्रॉम ट्राइबल मिनिस्ट्री. Some of the biggest policies which have come in the last couple of years were drafted in his active participation. मैं इनसे निवेदन करता हूँ कि पालघर जिले को लेकर विशेष रूप से कृषि और भोजन को लेकर इनका क्या विचार है.
हरे कृष्ण. His Highness Radhanath Swami ji, Ram Prabhuji dignitaries of the dais, esteemed guests, महाराज ने आपको फूड के स्पिरिचुअल पार्ट के बारे में बताया. राम प्रभु जी ने जो SDG गोल्स हैं और जो गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया ऑनरेबल प्राइम मिनिस्टर का जो मिशन है, मिलेट मिशन, उसके बारे में बताया. बेसिकली जो पालघर है ये एक ट्राइबल विलेज है, और आप अच्छे से जानते हैं कि आज से 50 साल पहले, चाहे वो पंजाब हो, मध्य प्रदेश हो, राजस्थान हो, वहां पे सैकड़ों टाइप्स के नेटिव फूड्स पाए जाते हैं. जैसे ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन शुरू हुआ पंजाब में पहले मक्की भी होती थी, सरसों का साग था, मूंगफली थी, दालें थी, बट धीरे धीरे हम लोगों की पूरी कंसंट्रेशन जो है ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन के बाद वो सिर्फ चावल और गेहूं पे है. ना सिर्फ ये न्यूट्रिशनली हार्मफुल है, जैसा महाराज जी ने, रंग प्रभु जी ने बताया, इनके लिए बहुत ज्यादा फर्टिलाइजर और पेस्टिसाइड भी चाहिए. और जो फूड हमें न्यूट्रिशन प्रोवाइड करने के लिए थे, एनर्जी के लिए थे, वो एक बीमारी का कारण. और इसमें सैकड़ों कंपनीज, जो फॉरेन की कंपनीज हैं, जो जेनेटिकली मॉडिफाइड सीड्स बनाए, उनके भी वेस्टेड इंटरेस्ट है. और जो बीमारियां हो रही हैं उससे फार्मा कंपनी से इंटरेस्ट है. फर्टिलाइजर और पेस्टिसाइड जो बना रहे हैं, तो ये लाखों करोड़ों की जो इकोनॉमी है वो धीरे धीरे, जहां भारत सोने की चिड़िया थी बिकॉज ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर ओनली, हम लोगों का जो गांव बेस्ड इकोनॉमी थी वो धीरे धीरे फर्टिलाइजर बेस्ड इकोनॉमी और मेडिसिन बेस्ड इकोनॉमी हो गई. तो पालघर में स्पिरिचुअल के साथ साथ जो सोशल इनिशिएटिव है, जो सनत कुमार प्रभु जी ने रूरल डेवलपमेंट का शुरू किया, हर साल हम लोग 25 से 50 विलेजेस को अडॉप्ट करते हैं। उनकी कैसी सॉइल है, वहां पे वाटर की कैसी अवेलेबिलिटी है, और कौन कौन से जो फूड्स हैं, जैसे मिलेट्स हैं, राइस हैं, जैसा आपने देखा लगभग 200 तरह के मिलेट्स और राइस जो लोग हो चुके थे उनको रिवाइव किया। ना उनको सिर्फ रिवाइव किया, उनके सीड बैंक्स बनाए, लाइवलीहुड दिया। सो फॉरवर्ड लिंकेजेस में उस फूड को जब तक उसकी मार्केट नहीं होगी तब तक इन जो ये कृषि के साथ जुड़े हुए जो यहाँ के लोकल्स हैं, जब तक उनको मार्केट नहीं मिलेगी तब तक उस मुहिम को एंड तक नहीं लेके जाएगा। उसी के आगे ना सिर्फ इस फूड की जो दालें हैं, चावल हैं, उनको रॉ में मार्केट किया जाए, बट उसके साथ साथ उसको कैसे कुक किया जाए, उसी मुहिम का पार्ट है कुलिनरी स्कूल। और मेरी माटी मेरी थाली में हम लोग कुलिनरी स्कूल के थ्रू ना सिर्फ शेफ्स को ट्रेन करेंगे, बट उसकी जो न्यूट्रिशनल वैल्यू है, चाहे उसमें प्रोटीन्स हैं, कार्बोहाइड्रेट्स हैं, विटामिन हैं, वो क्या क्या पाए जाते हैं, उसको साइंटिफिकली सिम्बायोसिस इंस्टीट्यूट के साथ मिलकर ये पूरा प्रोग्राम है। और जल्दी ही कुलिनरी इंस्टीट्यूट भी शुरू होगा, और वहां पे लगभग 700-800 जो शेफ्स हैं, जो कि सात्विक शेफ्स हैं, वो पूरे इंडिया में जैसे मंदिर की रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं, होटल्स की हैं, लोगों के बड़े बड़े घरों में जो रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं, ओल्ड एज होम्स में सात्विक फूड की जो रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं, उसको पूरा करने के लिए ये जो प्रोग्राम है, ये उसी का पार्ट है। इन शब्दों के साथ मैं आप सब लोगों को तहे दिल से धन्यवाद देता हूँ कि आप लोग आए और आपने इस प्रोग्राम की शुरुआत करी। धन्यवाद।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. Thank you very much, Navadip sir, for taking us through the history of how India was traditionally fully focused on indigenous foods, but then the focus on rice and wheat and fertilizers has put the entire focus on, not only reducing our economy but also increasing the disease. I now request Professor Ranjan Ghosh from Agribusiness School of IIM Ahmedabad, one of the top agribusiness schools in India, and also a very, very prominent voice in the policy making in the food sector in India, to share his thoughts, and then Vijay will continue.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Professor. I think as His Holiness Maharaj started off by talking about responsibility of consumption, Prabhuji talked about dietary diversity, and several other aspects of why local food production and consumption is important. I will just briefly touch upon an existential crisis we are all facing in this time and age, which is about the way global environmental changes are happening. And we all know about climate change. It's no more, some debatable scientific, framework or theory, but we are experiencing this in our real life. Farmers are experiencing this. There are health effects we are seeing this. Almost 33 to 35% of the driver of climate change actually comes from the food system. So from the production to the consumption of food system, including agriculture, distribution, supply chain, post-food waste handling. So this is a very, very important driver of climate change. And not only that, it is a very, very important, the entire food sector, food consumption system, if we say, is a very important reason behind resource depletion. And one of the most important resources is depleting, apart from the points mentioned by all the panelists about the soil, fertility, bad health of the soil, is also water consumption. So probably many of us already know that around 70 to 80% of entire water consumption that happens globally, especially if you talk about India, including industrial uses, personal uses, urban uses, is just for the purpose of growing crops and agriculture. And within that, around 90% of entire water, so if we can say 75 to 80% of entire water consumption actually happens only because of production of rice, wheat, and sugarcane. And we all know that these are not part of healthy diets. So what we have done as a part of our laboratory, lab at Ahmedabad, where we collaborate with global agencies like the UN, SDSN, and the Portland Institute of Climate Change, we work with models to actually project and see different scenarios for the future world based on historical data. And we found in our lab with global studies and human studies that when we move from the status quo of consumption, which includes all types of food consumption, to something called a planetary healthy diet, which is measured globally by a reference diet called the Eat Lancet diet, then there are already a lot of benefits which the planet receives, which includes people. So there is tremendous reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, nitrous oxide, which also animal production, which then goes to feed food. We did further. So what we did at our team at Ahmedabad is that we actually included in the model the recommendations of the National Institute of Nutrition, that is India level diet, not global reference diet, but India level diet. And we saw further 33 to 35% reductions in savings in these very important resources, water and reduction in greenhouse gases. Now imagine, and reference diets here are national diets, which is national level, then imagine the gains we will have when the diets become as local and as we are trying to do here as native food, coming down to the local production and consumption at a very sub-regional district level. So we are trying to model that. We will have some results very soon. But we already know intuitively that there are tremendous benefits. So I think that this broad macro perspective, global perspective, we started thinking about it, and I think Palkar will become a role model in this thanks to Prabhuji's drive and everybody's contribution and support here. And in this context, native food matters, and therefore native food matters. And now I will just ask Prithvi to just please come on the stage and also explain very briefly the idea of why Meri Thali, the concept, how it evolved, and where we plan to take it, and why this will become the entire ecosystem of local district-based thalis, diets, and native food matters will go a long, long way in not only saving and actually improving human health, as Radhima said, but also overall planetary health. So thank you very much. Over to Prithvi, please.
Can just yeah. Yeah, just one more introduction of Prithvi is he's running a startup called Ketika, agribusiness startup, and he's a student of Professor Ghosh. But within 10 years, he has set up a company which is doing a revenue of more than $50 million per annum. Very, very successful in demonstrating that our traditional foods have market and practicality also. Yes.
Uh, Prabhuji, Radhanath Prabhuji, Puran Prabhuji, diets के उपस्थित सभी महान भाव और सब गेस्ट, जैसे आपने नाम सुना नेटिव फूड वेटर्स में मेरी माटी मेरी थाली, ये नाम सुनते ही आपको एक कनेक्ट हुआ कि कुछ मेरा अपना है। इस प्रोग्राम का मेन पर्पस है आपका फूड का आपके साथ रिलेशनशिप डेवलप करना। मैं एक गांव से आया हूँ जहां मैं पला बड़ा था, मुझे पता था मेरा खाना कहाँ से आ रहा है, कौन सी गाय का दूध में पी रहा हूँ, कौन खाना बना रहा है। आज जब हम सिटीज में देखते हैं, आज फूड खाते हैं, आप फैक्ट्री में फूड खाते हैं, आपको पता नहीं है वो फूड कहाँ से आ रहा है, उस फूड के साथ आज आपका कोई रिलेशनशिप नहीं। अगर आपका फूड के साथ रिलेशनशिप नहीं है तो आप फूड को केयर नहीं करेंगे। जब आप फूड को केयर नहीं करेंगे, फूड आपको केयर नहीं करेगा। Food is not for taste only. Food is not for nutrition also only. Food is nourishment, and more so, food is healer. Today the world needs that healing. मेरी माटी मेरी थाली जो प्रोग्राम है, इसका मेन पर्पस है कि हम ट्रेडिशनल जो फूड है उसको हम अपनी एक डेली हैबिट में लेते हैं, उसकी हम डिमांड जनरेट करें। क्योंकि आज कितना भी हम ट्रेडिशनल फूड को प्रमोट करें, जब तक उसका डिमांड नहीं आएगा, जब तक वो प्रमोट नहीं होगा। और ये डिमांड जनरेट करने का पर्पज सिर्फ डिमांड जनरेट करना नहीं है, वी शुड फील प्राउड ऑफ इट एंड वी शुड प्रमोट इट सो दैट एवरीबडी गेट बेनिफिट ऑफ इट। सो मेरी माटी मेरी थाली प्रोग्राम के अंदर आइडिया ये है कि हर रीजन अपने फूड को प्रमोट करे जो उस मिट्टी से बना है और जिस तरीके से बना है। इसमें वो भी इम्पोर्टेंट चीज है कि ये फूड बनता कैसे है। फूड को चूल्हे के ऊपर पकाया जाता है, धीमी आंच में पकाया जाता है, या फिर उसको जंगल से तोड़ के कच्चा खाया जाता है, या फूड को किन चीजों के साथ खाया जाता है। ये पूरा जो नॉलेज सिस्टम है ट्रेडिशनली अवेलेबल है, जो आज कहीं हम भूल चुके हैं। आपने देखा होगा आज भी बाहर काफी सारा ट्रेडिशनल फूड था जो आपने देखा, मोस्ट ऑफ दैट फूड इज नाउ लॉस्ट थैंक्स टू गोल्डन इको विलेज, इट इज कमिंग बैक एंड थैंक्स टू दिस प्रोग्राम मेरी माटी मेरी थाली। पहला आपका रिलेशनशिप आए, फिर उसके बाद वो फूड आए, और फिर उस फूड का बेनिफिट आएगा। क्यों हमें ट्रेडिशनल फूड चाहिए? नंबर वन रीजन, इट इज गुड फॉर हेल्थ, इट इज होलिस्टिक कंप्लीट फूड। जो आपने देखा होगा वहां पे न्यूट्रिशनल टेबल रखी हुई है, उसमें आपने देखा प्रोटीन भी है, सारे मैक्रो न्यूट्रिएंट्स है, माइक्रो न्यूट्रिएंट्स है, जिनके बारे में करते हैं। अटेंशन इज इन द डिटेल, हेल्थ इज मोर सो। दूसरा इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है कि ये फ्रेश होता है, क्वालिटी अच्छी होती है। क्योंकि आप ट्रेडिशनल फूड खाओगे क्वालिटी अच्छी होती है। जैसे सर ने बताया, अगर राइस और कुछ प्रोडक्ट्स में हम हैं तो अगर उनको माइल्स अगर ट्रेवल किया जाता है तो उसको प्रोसेस करना पड़ता है, प्रिजर्वेटिव डालना पड़ता है। आपके नेटिव फूड बिल्कुल फ्रेश है, क्वालिटी अच्छा होगा और आपको अच्छा लगेगा। तीसरा जो इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट है इसका, वन इज हेल्थ न्यूट्रिशन एस्पेक्ट, सेकंड इंपॉर्टेंट इज इमोशनल एस्पेक्ट व्हिच आई मेंशन, एंड थर्ड इज इकोनॉमिक एस्पेक्ट। क्योंकि जब आप फूड को लोकल फूड खा रहे हैं तो वहां के फार्मर्स, वहां के जो एवरीबॉडी हु इज इन्वॉल्वड इन इट is attached to that, so your relationship with your community gets strengthened, which is what today the world needs. We have lost again the relationship. This meri mati meri thali builds that relationship. So now I am coming to the last point, which is we want to make it important. So it means I need a help from everyone of you, including the media, everybody whosoever is talking about it. We should promote it in a way which is consumed today. So if I just say today in the world, 3 mega trends chal rahe health. Of course, native food is a very strong in health. Second is about palate and taste. We are coming back to our roots and nothing come back in a very meri thali way. And third is convenience. If we don't have a convenience aspect at risk, this will not be successful. So it means it has to be adopted by everybody, including every district of India, every village of India, all the restaurants, new recipes, innovative way of the way in our modern lifestyle can accommodate that food also. So this is what I would request each of you to contribute yourself. Contribute in a form that whether you are including that in your daily food, how you are including your regional food which is made. So अपने एक कहावत है कि फूड आपके रीजन के हिसाब से और आपके सीजन के हिसाब से होना चाहिए। अगर आपको ये दोनों चीजें करनी है तो ओनली वे इज टू गो टू नेटिव फूड बेटर्स। एंड देन मेरी माटी मेरी थाली का मेन विजन ये है कि हम हर डिस्ट्रिक्ट, जैसे वन डिस्ट्रिक्ट वन प्रोडक्ट है, उसी तरह हर डिस्ट्रिक्ट अपनी थाली को, चाहे वो राजस्थान से हो, चाहे वो महाराष्ट्र से हो, चाहे वो पालघर से हो, चाहे वो किसी विलेज से हो, वो अपने पुराने ट्रेडिशनल रेसिपीज को, उनके फूड को वापस लेके आए, उनको अडॉप्ट करें, उन्हें मॉडर्न अवतार में अडॉप्ट करें और हम सब उसको यूज करें और हमारा रिलेशनशिप वापस हमारे फूड के साथ एस्टैब्लिश करें। थैंक यू।
Thank you very much, Vijay. Now I request Kunal and Mitlaji to take one of the copies of the book and present it to His Holiness Raghunath Maharaj. Kunal and Mitlaji have been instrumental in doing the layout, and we have Madam, Radhika ji and Mugdha ji and Michael. The book team can make a presentation. आइए सब एक साथ आके महाराज जी को ऑफर कीजिए बुक आइए। विनीता जी सामने आइए। तब तक ये कॉपीज So this is the flavors of Palghar native food models, the first book being launched. This is just a sample copy. There will be a formal production in the next few months, and I request His Holiness Radha Maharaj to bless this wonderful initiative. और अभी dignitaries on the dais, आप लोग इसको अपना release कीजिए. हरे कृष्णा.
हरे
तो अब मैं निवेदन करता हूँ all the prizes to be given is brought on Radhi Mataji's side. She will be giving the prize distribution. Being a great cook herself,
the sattvic and flavors of the Balganja, circularity of the economy at Thali, symbolizes School of Culinary Arts and the Nutrition Sciences में native food matters initiate करने का था and promote करने का था एक national level cooking competition के लिए. This competition was organized in conjunction with the Symbioses School of Culinary Arts, the team of chefs, and our nutrition team at the Symbioses School of Culinary Arts. And we invited recipes in two different categories. One was the sweet category, using the local three ingredients. One was mahua flour, the horse gram, and the purple yam. There was another category, which was savory category, and we received a tremendously good response from various categories of professional chefs, homemakers, self-help groups, the students of nutrition, students of culinary from different culinary schools, professional chefs who participated in this competition. Out of the total recipes received, the top 30 were identified to come for a cook-off, where a cook-off was done at Symbioses School of Culinary Arts with Chef Sanjeev Kapoor judging the final recipes. And who is also the chair professor at Symbioses for the culinary school. From these categories, different recipes in sweet and savory were identified as winners. The top three in the sweet category, I'll read it out whether I'm not sure whether all the participants are available over here. The third prize went to Vidit Batavia and Om from Nashik. They had created a panna cotta recipe. If Om and Vidit and Om are here, please do come in front. The prize, third prize went to this one. Yeah.
yes.
They created a panna cotta recipe from the mahua. Please give a round of applause to them.